Hello and welcome everybody to another video on the CompTIA A+ 1101 examination, where I'm going to do my best to help you get ready to pass the A+ 1101 exam. And today we're going to be conquering exam objective 3.1. I'm going to do everything in my power to break this down and make it as simple as I possibly can, telling you everything you need to know and then giving you some practice exam questions at the end of this video that you can use to test your knowledge. Let's get straight into it with the exam objective. The objective is on, given a scenario, install the appropriate RAM. We're going to be looking at the different types of RAM and the concept of single channel, dual channel, triple channel, and quad channel, what that means. Now, in comparison to the last video, this one's going to be pretty easy on the brain cells for the most part. So sit back and get ready to cover this content. Let's get straight to it. So, the first things first, a general overview of RAM. What is RAM? It is not permanent storage. It is temporary storage that is used when loading applications or documents. So I've got a little picture here on the slide of a bug that's been splattered on the windscreen. And the reason I have that there is because that kind of represents RAM for me. When you turn your computer off, the RAM is cleared. There's nothing in RAM anymore. When you turn it back on, that's when that RAM starts to activate and actually do things, but it is emptied every time you turn your computer off. In the same way, if you have a bug splattered on your windscreen and you turn your computer off, is equivalent to the windscreen wipers wiping, it wipes that bug away. It's not there anymore. So perhaps that's a little bit of an abstract analogy, but it works for me in my brain when I was studying for this. So RAM is like a bug squished on a windshield. If that works for you, then great. If not, I'm so sorry. On to the next topic. The next part of the exam wants us to look at SODIMM RAM, but in order to know about SODIMM RAM, you first have to know what it's being compared to. So essentially, you have two different types of RAM modules. You have DIMM RAM, or dual inline memory module, and then you also have SODIMM, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But really, all you need to know is that DIMM is used in desktops, in big desktop computers. DIMM RAM modules are larger and they can fit into the form factor of a larger desktop computer. So you can see some images of that here. On the other hand, you have SODIMM. Now, SODIMM, or small outline dual inline memory modules, are used in laptops. For the most part, that's what you're going to need to know about SODIMM RAM. SODIMM is used in laptops. So if you're ever asked a question on your exam about what RAM should you choose for a laptop, DIMM or SODIMM, just know it's SODIMM because they're used in laptops due to their smaller form factor. You can see some images here that I've pulled off of Google Images. Alright, next topic for this exam objective is the idea of virtual RAM. Now, you have the physical modules that you can place in your computer. So we have a little image here that, again, I pulled from Google Images. It's a beautiful thing. If you type what you need to know in Google Images, it'll give you lots of good pictures that'll help you understand things. So we've got in this top half, without virtual memory, 2 gigabytes of RAM. So you've got a RAM module there, which is 2 gigabytes. But if you have 2 gigabytes of RAM and then that 2 gigabytes of RAM in that module is starting to get full, you can use what is called virtual RAM. So if you have some hard drive space that is not currently being used, you can actually use that as what is called virtual RAM. And that is temporarily using unused storage space as RAM. It is slower than actual RAM. So generally, you're not going to be thinking to yourself, oh, yes, I have some virtual RAM to use. Don't worry, I don't need to upgrade my RAM or, do anything to solve that issue. It's really a temporary fix to the symptom, and you're not going to want to rely on it long term because it's not anywhere near as fast or efficient as actual RAM. So virtual RAM, just know for your exam, is the idea of using unused storage space as RAM temporarily. Okay, it's not a long-term solution. You don't want to rely on that. So we'll move into DDR3, 4, and 5. Basically, guys, these are just like low-range RAM, mid-range RAM, and then really, really good RAM. So with each upgrade, you're getting more RAM, more speed, more efficiency, right? So in terms for what that means for your exam, I want to try to break it down to what you need to know without going on a tangent about a story for RAM that I used 8 years ago. We don't need to know that. We just need to know what we need for our exam, right? So for your exam, what you're going to need to know is based on a scenario, right? You might be given a scenario, for example, hypothetically, and you might have to choose the appropriate type of RAM for this person. So if they say they have no budget requirements, right? They can spend as much money as they want. They just want the best performing PC. Of course, you'd go DDR5, right? It's going to be more expensive, but it is going to give the better performance. If they're saying, look, I want to get the best thing available based on a mid-range budget, then of course that would be DDR4. And similarly, if they're saying, I literally just want to use Microsoft Word, I'm so dirt poor, all I can do is eat 2-minute noodles for lunch because I literally have no money, you're probably going to go for DDR3 in that instance, right? Because that's a minimum standard based on their budget. So just get used to accounting for their budget and their requirements and weighing those up as so far as which one of these you should choose. For your exam, that's what I want you to really focus on thinking about there, okay? Now, the final one of this little dot point here is error correction code, or ECC RAM. And that is memory that checks itself for errors. So if you have some kind of critical system and it's really important that there's no errors on that system, you're going to want to go for ECC RAM. Of course, it is very expensive, right? So that's going to be something to take into consideration. You wouldn't get ECC RAM if you're just using it for your home computer and you're doing some work on Google Docs, right? It's going to be saved for some serious infrastructure kind of scenarios. So ECC RAM is memory that checks itself for errors. So far we've covered different types of RAM, right? Basically, like I said, for your exam, you're going to need to be able to look at a scenario and think about what is the best type of RAM based on that situation. Which RAM should I recommend? We'll look at some practice questions that might go into that at the end of this video. We'll move on now to the concept of single channel, dual channel, triple channel, and quad channel RAM. And this is a really simple concept, guys. We're not going to be here too long trying to get our heads around this. So it's really simple. Single channel memory sends the data over one channel. Dual channel memory sends the data over 2 channels. So basically, with each additional channel, you're getting better performance and more efficiency. That's pretty much it. So of course, just as we looked at with the DDR3, DDR4, DDR5 RAM, for this, you're going to have to take into account the person's budget, their requirements, insofar as what kind of RAM you recommend to them with the channels that they want to have, right? So similar concept that we talked about with the DDR3, DDR4, DDR5 RAM with this. If they have a really cheap budget and minimal requirements, single channel is fine. If they have a lot of requirements and no budget, go max it out, quad channel that baby. You know, just consider those variables there. Now, we'll move on to some practice questions for you. The first question reads, this will help us test if we know what we're talking about here. Lazarus is currently using DDR3 RAM and would like to upgrade to DDR5 RAM. How can he exchange the DDR3 for the DDR5? A. Simply remove the DDR3 and replace it with DDR5. B. He cannot. DDR5 is not compatible with a DDR3 slot. C. DDR5 RAM does not exist. The highest it goes is DDR4. Or D. RAM is fused to the motherboard and cannot be removed. Your answer coming up in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so the answer is B, he cannot. DDR5 is not compatible with the DDR3 slot. So if we head back to this slide, I didn't actually articulate it with my voice, but it says they are not backwards compatible, okay? So if you have a DDR3 slot, you're not going to be able to put a DDR5 RAM module in that slot. They are not backwards compatible, okay? So that is important to keep in consideration for questions such as this. What are some other options here that might be worth noting? Just the last one where it says RAM is fused to the motherboard and cannot be removed. That might be worth considering if it specifically mentioned a laptop. There's generally less customizability when it comes to laptop motherboards, but for a desktop, that's not necessarily an issue. And because it didn't specify desktop or laptop, probably not the best answer there. Sorry, I was choking because I'm so excited to get to the next question. Okay, The next question reads, Reese has multiple programs open at a time, and his computer is running out of RAM. He decides to implement virtual RAM in order to temporarily solve this issue. What does this mean? A. Installing a virtual machine and using its resources. B. Temporarily using unused storage space as RAM. C. Plugging in another DDR4 into the PCIe slot. Or D. Implementing ECC. Pause the video if you need some time to think about it. Your answer is coming up. Now, the answer is B, temporarily using unused storage space as RAM. So we just talked about that one. Virtual RAM is when you have unused storage space and you're temporarily going to use that as RAM. Again, really note that it is not a good long-term solution, okay? It's a temporary fix to the symptom. It's a Band-Aid solution. Don't rely on it long-term because it's not fast or efficient, okay? So that's it, guys. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, if you found those practice questions useful, if you found the text in this video useful, I pulled the images from Google Slides, but the text is all from my learning guide. You can head over to journeytocyber.com where I have a bunch of really good A+ 1101 resources that will help you get ready to absolutely pass this exam with confidence. So we have my practice exams, which has performance-based questions over here on the left, as well as multiple choice questions on the right. There are 5 of those exams for you. Each one having performance-based questions, okay? Actual performance-based questions, which I think is really cool. And then you also have my performance-based questions simulation for the troubleshooting component of the exam, which is what most people tend to have the most issues with based on my experience. So that's cool. You'll have questions where you have to click on the individual people, solve their problems. You might have to click on these people, figure out the most likely cause, confirm their cause by doing the right course of action, and then make a recommendation to them. Okay, so really in-depth kind of performance-based questions here based only on what you'll need to do for the exam objectives that CompTIA gives out. And finally, you have my learning guide. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on my learning guide. People are really enjoying it. It's a good way to go through objective by objective. You can use it to follow along to this video series, Professor Mess's video series, whatever video series you're watching. Of course, you're watching mine, right? Of course. That's why you're here. Okay, so head over to journeytocyber.com where you can grab any of those. They're, as far as I'm concerned, the best resources that are available for the A+ 1101 exam. And I wish I had them when I was studying. I truly wish that I had these. I'm full of sorrow knowing that I had to piece all this stuff together from different sources. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next exam objective, which is 3.3. I'll see you there. Have a good one.